I think the best way to understand what your viewers want is to be a viewer and
Mm.
consume content and understand what people are watching and what they're reacting to and what's relevant to them, especially for businesses and for business folks when they're trying to kind of jump into this social media realm to promote their business or just give their
Mhm.
brand an online presence. They really lack that kind of awareness and that
Mm.
kind of, it's an effort, right?
Mm.
Because especially if you're not part of the demographic you're creating for, it might be a lot harder for you to consume that content, at least naturally. Like you'll have to seek it out.
Hi, Noah. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
To give the audience a little bit of background, you started design when you were 13, and then you were like originally involved in like a video gaming community doing
Mm.
$5 Twitter header design to build your portfolio. And then you went to a design school in Florida, second year in college, you host an art show, and then a guy who looked like a creative director hired you on the spot. So you've been working on like many brands like during your school year. And then later on, you started working online. You stumbled upon Calvin Gold, who is like a business owner who created like a lot of like, I guess, like internet famous people's brands, such as like the Dolan twins, like Candle. And then later on, you started making TikTok videos. And then like you have over 1 million followers on TikTok. And to start the show, I would love for you to like share with the audience a little bit more about like, what you've learned early on in your career that kind of took you into where you are today.
God, I don't want to be, how do you say, stereotypical, but I think one of the biggest things was to take things into your own hands and don't
Mm.
like let these assumed barriers stop you from doing what you want. Things where like, I don't want to offend this person, or I don't want to do this, or, they're not going to let me do this because my work's not good enough. It's like, it doesn't mean anything until you try. And then if you
Mm.
try and they say no, that just means you just have to keep asking. That's something that I've implemented a lot into what I'm
Mm.
doing. And it's worked wonders. And I think pretty much any entrepreneur can attest to that same thing where if someone says no, that means you're just asking the wrong person.
There's like so many great designers out there, but like number one is like not many people like make it really big on TikTok. And then number two is like you also started your own like design agency, and then you're charging like a monthly subscription fee for people. And then like you're obviously doing really well for yourself. Who is on your personal board of advisors when it comes to like designing your own business or like designing your own like kind of career path?
I take like actually designing like the
Mhm.
brand and the visual stuff of things. I take consideration for people that are very different
Mhm.
than the folks I would take like business structure, like kind of
Mhm.
like legitimate career advice from. On the design side, I usually will talk to just people that are in the industry that I really respect their opinion. And I have a really close group of a couple of friends that are just heavy hitters, just
Mhm.
all around great creatives, been in the industry for decades, done amazing stuff, worked with great brands. And so it's really valuable when I show something to them and say, could you please help me figure out what to do with this, right? But on the other side, on like business and freelance and how to just, how to be an entrepreneur and stuff, that's a much more foreign concept to me than design, right? Because I've been doing the design part for a better part of my life. I would say that I've done, small entrepreneurial stuff like selling $5 Twitter headers to
Mhm.
make a portfolio. But once I kind of started working remote for myself, I was introduced to this huge world of like really heavy hitting entrepreneur people like Kevin, who you mentioned, and some friends like, JT Barnett and Casey Adams, and these people who are like around my age taking over the world. Those are some of the guys that I really look to when I'm talking about business stuff and asking for advice on, not necessarily like, is this right or wrong, but just like, I'd love your opinion because I respect it and I value it and I want to take it into consideration. Maybe this is ego, maybe this is, whatever, but it's like, I'm not asking for their advice so that I can mimic what they're doing. I'm asking so that I can better inform the decisions that I'm making for my path. You know what I mean? So it's
Mhm.
not like, okay, I want to do exactly what you did, because no entrepreneurial path is going to be the same for anybody. And so, yeah, I have like two distinct separate groups. There's rarely an
Mhm.
overlap.
I'm curious, like, how do you kind of like build these kind of relationships? I know that like you probably encounter some of them are like just your clients. I saw like the names that you mentioned are like also on your website, and I'm curious, like, how do you navigate these kind of relationships or like network building?
It's super tricky. It's sort of like I'm definitely not like, a master at it by any means. I think part of it is just being fortunate enough to work with people who just so happen to really align with like my energy and just what what I believe in and what I want to go
Mhm.
after. And like, it's kind of one of those things where when you see somebody who, not necessarily that you want to mimic or that you want to like be, but it's like
Mhm.
your energy is supplementing mine and where I want to go. And I want to keep you around. I don't know. And maybe this is just me not being experienced. I just don't like beating around the bush. I don't.
Mhm.
Like, if you're my client and I appreciate
Mhm.
you, I'm going to say it. And I'm going to say, you know what, man, I really have loved you as a client. This is so awesome. And like,
Mhm.
let's say that our working relationship ends, right? Like, let's say the project's done. At the end of it, I'll be, hey, this was really fun. Like thoroughly enjoyed this. Thank you for trusting me with this because I know that's a big ask of someone.
Mhm.
Don't be a stranger. Let's keep in
Mhm.
touch. Let me keep supporting you. Let me keep rooting for you. And if you need some help in the future, let me know. And I think most
Mhm.
people find that relatively refreshing because they're used to
Mhm.
people trying to, kind of come at
Mhm.
them at a sideways angle or try to get something from them. There's some sort of like quid pro quo undertone, if you will.
Mhm.
But for me, I'm not interested in playing those games. And so usually if it's a relationship and it's valuable to me, I will let you know. And I'll say, I
Mhm.
really appreciate you and I really appreciate the time you're taking. And again, like I know that like I have a lot of value that I can give with the design stuff. And so
Mhm.
anytime that a friend like that or a colleague like that needs something, it's like I want to be the guy that you can come to and I will help you find a solution
Mhm.
to your problem, if not just solve the problem for you. Right.
Mhm.
So if you're like, I need, I need this logo or I need a video edited or I just whatever, it's like, it's really great. Let me ask my network. I'm sure I can find somebody for you and like I'll get, back in touch with you. Or if you need a quick tweak to your logo, or if you need this, or I can't change it. Like it's stuff like that, even small to big. It just shows that you're giving, right? You're
Mhm.
showing like, hey, look, I respect you and I want to help you in the ways that I can. And I think being, like I said, being really straightforward in combination with just giving with what you can really
Mhm.
does numbers for a successful relationship and having people in your corner that are willing to do the same for you.
What is like one skill that you're constantly trying to get better at? And what do you think set you apart from like other designers who are also in the design zone, who are like, trying to make it on TikTok, that like what you feel like were making you went really like a lot bigger than a lot of other creators who may start at the same time or who have the similar design skills? Like what kind of like set you apart?
One of the biggest things, and I preach this a lot to people who ask about, how do you do this or how do you
Mhm.
make this thing, is that I guess the term is upskilling, but I don't think that was a thing when I was starting to do this, but it was looking at stuff where I would be in a project and say this was a branding project and the client needs a logo, this and this, and a website. And at the time I was like, I don't know how to code a website. Why not? Like,
Mhm.
go learn it. Why not? Like, go do it. And so I did. And so I was like, all right, let me find a tool that makes sense. And I found Webflow, which is like a no code, very similar
Mhm.
interface to like design programs that I use. And I learned how to code a website. And then it just kind of becomes this overlap thing where now I know how to code a website. Cool. What if I want to put something three-dimensional on the website? At the time, I probably didn't know how to do anything 3D. Why not? Like, go learn it,
Mhm.
And I think there's so many resources available that it's something that you really can just go online if you're able to,
Mhm.
properly, find what you need or look for stuff you need. It's endless. You can teach yourself anything. And so it's just become this thing I call the toolbox, which
Mhm.
now is if anyone needs something, I at least know a little bit about it, or like, I'm at least intermediate to a degree, or like I know
Mhm.
how to get to what they want. And I think that's such a valuable thing to have and to always be looking for like the next thing that you don't know how to do, because
Mhm.
learning it is going to make you just that much better. And to answer your second point, maybe this segues into that. I think that's one of them, is the side skilling or upskilling
Mhm.
or the lateral overlap skilling. I don't know, whatever you want to
Mhm.
call it. I think that was a huge one. And so when I took the TikTok first, I really was just focused on your bread and butter cookie cutter. Here's how you design this. Here's how you do this effect, right? Because I saw that other designers were doing similar things. So I was like, all right, let me just start that way. I don't know where to start. Let me just start, right?
Mhm.
And as I was doing that, I was realizing like, man, this isn't really what I want. Like I want to do something better. Like I want to make it better.
Mhm.
And so what I noticed was that people were they want tutorials, but they want them quicker. I want
Mhm.
them quicker. I don't want to watch a 5 minute tutorial. I want to watch a 10-second tutorial. And so I started making tutorials in 10
Mhm.
seconds and being like, how can I be so concise with my wording and
Mhm.
so direct with my explanation that I can bring this down to a 10-second video. Even like I can teach myself new shortcuts, new ways of doing something that maybe I've taken the long route unknowingly all these years as I'm just working normally. I'm like, oh, I didn't know there was a shortcut for this. And now I've added that to my toolbox, so to speak. And I think that translated in more ways than just kind of making content. I think it started becoming like an obsession. And so I was looking at, you know, overlapping demographics with audiences. And I was looking at like, how can I reach the most amount of people and still relate it to design, even though most people won't really care about the design. And so it became a really heavy strategy game. And I'd say that most designers on TikTok, not that they don't have strategy behind what they're doing, but I think their focus isn't so much as like growing as much as it is showcasing their design skills. To clarify, like I would never say that I'm a better designer because I have more followers or like I'm better than anyone else. I think there's probably millions of creatives out there who could smoke whatever I'm trying to do. But the way that I look at it is that's how I want it. Like I always want people to be upping the game so that I can keep learning the same way that I want to keep adding to my toolbox and, you know, continually filling out this sphere of knowledge that I want to, you know, fill up to the top.
I hear that like you would take a piece of paper to write down the length of your like top performing videos, like, and then the time that you post, and then you would like just be like, okay, so this is the time zone that like I'll be like posting and stuff like that. And then you started with like, you know, making these like tutorials, and then later on like you went to a Target, and then like you saw like this Lego thing, and then like you decided to like make a video out like what if Lego is like luxury, and then like it kind of like just took off. How do you kind of like come up with these style of making videos?
Honestly, it spawned through a lot of A/B testing. It's not as glamorous as I wish it was, but I think I'll go through like a route of content where like, you know, the 10-second designs, right? And as none of them went like really viral. I had a couple that broke, you know, a couple 100K, but I wouldn't really consider that viral.
It's
But I
fair for
would
me.
Okay, well, thanks. But I looked at it as like a whole, right? Like as parts and things that I could switch out. So it's kind of like it's similar to video games, right? And the way that I kind of grew up as a kid, where especially in like MMOs and RPG games, the whole point is to create a build that like minimizes the negatives and maximizes the positives. And so it's a term like I think speedrunners use it, and it's called min-maxing, where they're like the least amount of effort for like, you know, or the least amount of time for like the most amount of progress. And it's a similar concept in nature where like I'll make a video and it really is just shoot until you hit something, but then I'll take that and I will literally go look at the track in After Effects or Premiere or whatever I did and say, okay, this video is approximately 15 seconds long. I spent about 1.5 seconds on the intro. I spent 1 second, you know, showcasing the logo, the original logo. My buildup is 3.5 seconds, and then my showcase is 7.5 seconds. How can I like, is that too long? Like, what if I made my buildup 3 seconds instead of 4, or like and do whatever? And so I'll start doing that, and kind of obviously there's way more factors at play. But I got so granular at that I was obsessive with it. If you've seen Always Sunny in Philadelphia, there's that meme of the like him at like the board, and he's like wide-eyed and has all these dots connecting. Like that was literally me with these whiteboards on my thing. Like I had my partner sitting here, and I was like, okay, here's the 6 viral videos that I've had. I posted this one at this time. It's about this content. And it was at this whatever. And so I was like, okay, so I can only post on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays between the times of 11 a.m. I don't know what's it called. And like I can't post it anytime past 12:30. And so it got really to like that degree, I will say, even to a fault, because it started stressing me out so much if I wasn't meeting like these exact things, because I was trying to basically reverse engineer the algorithm, which never works. And so that was kind of how I crafted that formula, was just trying something and then refining it to the point of like, okay, well, what if I'm going to do a showcase and there's 7 seconds, I'm going to have mock-up clip, stock footage, mock-up clip, mock-up. Okay, well, what if I just did mock-up clip, stock footage, or like different combinations of that stuff, and then kind of saying like, oh, well, people really like it when I make some sort of like a comedic tongue-in-cheek jab at it. So like, for example, the Ariana Grande stuff, there's this, she has this thing where she goes like, yeah. And everyone and her fans always find that really funny. And I was like, how can I include that in here? One, in a way where I'm not being like making fun of her, because I'm not. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, like we all whatever. And so I'll just like sneak it in as a little Easter egg. And that stuff I realized made a significant increase in engagement. And I guess that's also just why it's partially because of the video games, but I think I'm just so invested in that like data and the statistics and like the guesswork of like recognizing trends and patterns and
Mm,
seeing like overlapping similarities and being like, what if I just stuck my hand in this pot and stirred it? You know what I mean?
mm,
And so that created a bunch of like really awesome, unique moments where I was like, okay, I'm recognizing my audience is really like young, right? They're probably 13 to 24 or whatever. At least half of those are in school, straight up school. What about my posting times? When do you get off school? Like, when do you do this? And so then I'm thinking, like, where's the biggest majority? Is it in California? So am I posting on, am I posting on Pacific time? But it also was like, what do I make the content about? What are kids in high school doing right now? And it's like, they like video games. What kind of video games? It's like Five Nights at Freddy's. Oh, that's actually a really good one. Let's make one. 1 million views. Like, no
mm.
problem. It's like, oh, people really like this school idea. Let me make a video game if it were a school. And then every video, hundreds and thousands. And it's, and so it kind of came like this game for me, ironically, where I turn
Mhm.
everything into a game of recognizing the pattern,
Mm.
min-maxing my setup, and then pursuing that in a way that was like, creative design or whatever, and then seeing what the results were, and then, reviewing and elaborating.
In terms of like the creative process itself, you mentioned in an interview you would like wake up and then go to a Starbucks and then sit there for like 3 hours and then the video is ready. Does this still look like your day for now, or like just like because I feel like it takes so much time to even coming up with idea, like, and not even mentioning like designing the logo itself, and like do you design the logo first, do you write like a mini script or something, and like to a day to day, like how do you collect these kind of like inspirations throughout the day? Like do you keep like a Notion sheet going on, like, okay, here's my 55 ideas like I'm gonna execute next year?
Yeah.
How do you like kind of like making like a system for yourself to like turn your idea into like a video?
I unfortunately don't have the
No more
luxury of spending.
Starbucks
No more
anymore.
Starbucks. We're not doing Starbucks anymore. But for a long period of time, that was really the
Mhm,
process, was getting out of the house,
mhm,
doing something, because I work from home. So it's like I need
mhm,
to have a commute, so to speak, so that I can separate, relax, like
mhm,
downtime with work time. And it's weird, and it may not make a lot of sense, and but maybe you resonate with it. It's like I've been doing it so long to the point now where like when I'm thinking of something, I can kind of design it in my head before I've ever
mhm,
touched the computer. So it's like, oh yeah, that G has this shape, and like do whatever. And so I'm thinking about that stuff kind of just passively, and being
mhm,
like, what would really make sense? Like, oh, is the Starbucks logo, does that have any negative spaces
mhm,
that would be like, very easy to convert into something else, right? And I will say, I wish I was as organized as having like a clear-cut Notion sheet with
mhm,
all the stuff. I actually had tried to create something like that, but TikTok didn't really have any great tools for harvesting all the comments, which is where I
mhm,
I was like, the core of the videos was responding to somebody's request with what they wanted. And so I would like harvest all that, and I did it one time with like a tool, and it wasn't very practical. And then I was like, okay, now I'm going to sort based on probability, how many times this came up, yada yada. And so it was like this whole
mhm,
science that I just got more of, but it wasn't really sustainable long term. A lot of it is just by being aware and consuming.
mhm,
I think the best way to understand what your viewers want is to be a viewer and
mhm,
consume content and understand what people are watching and what they're reacting to and what's relevant to them, especially for businesses and for business folks when they're trying to kind of jump into the social media realm to promote their business or just give their
mhm,
brand an online presence. They really lack that kind of awareness and that
mhm,
kind of, it's an effort, right?
mhm,
Because especially if you're not part of the demographic you're creating for, it might be a lot harder for you to consume that content, at least naturally. Like you'll have to seek it out. But it's such an important role in figuring out what content you want to make, because you'll recognize things if you're
mhm,
consuming, right? Like some of my biggest videos I never would
mhm,
have made if I hadn't noticed that there was like, wow, everyone's really talking about this Taylor Swift song and this one
mhm,
thing about Jake Gyllenhaal being the supposed guy who stole her red scarf, right? Like
mhm,
such a niche, like very unique thing that probably anybody over the age of 35 would not care about.
mhm,
Right. They just don't care. But I made a video on it. I was like, oh, what if like she had like a Starbucks collab? And then I did a little, like I said earlier, a little Easter egg on the cup that was like,
mhm,
where's the scarf, Jake? And that was 250,000 views. And
mhm,
so I think a lot of it is attributing to just like, if you want to know like how to make videos for your audience, watch videos like that your audience is watching.
Mhm.
And you'd be surprised how much information you can pick up from there.
In terms of like promoting a business, like, you have your own business, like technically you have your own like design firm. And then like, how do you kind of like manage the time? Because I think every day you have to design for your like actual clients at your design company. Like, do you have like a team of people who will design for you? And then you will be like the person who's like helping them maybe like advance that? Or like, do you come to the client side who is like landing these like deals for the company? Like, how do you kind of like structure your day as well as like making massive like follow TikTok? And like, I feel like every single day there's like so much momentum to hit as like both like a famous like TikToker as well as like a business owner. How do you like kind of like do it in a day?
Honestly, in full transparency, it's a lot. I would argue that I don't really even manage it as well as probably
Mhm.
some other people do. I'm figuring it out the same way that everyone else is by trial and error. I've actually just got off a hiatus from TikTok for about 4 months because I was so focused on building the brand and the website and understanding the back end machinery
Mhm.
of like what operates a business that I really didn't have time to make those kind of fun, videos
Mhm.
and stuff. At the moment, I just have to wear a lot of hats. And I think optimally, like you were saying, I would love to build a team of people, probably small, keep it really lean, and act more as like a creative director,
Mhm.
and someone who goes out and gets sales and talks to
Mhm.
clients and is maybe more like
Mhm.
CEO centric. And then
Mhm.
I have this core team that's really helping me do the heavy lifting for the work, and then I can help
Mhm.
guide them in the right direction for whatever solution is, correct for the client. But it's tricky. It's a lot. And I will say that I sometimes get overwhelmed when I see, people on LinkedIn talking about how they're waking up at 4:30 and taking cold showers every day and like they, dry scoop
Hey,
whey
it's all for the
protein.
views.
Yeah, it's obvious, it's so hyperbolic and just obnoxious to a degree. And I think it's refreshing too when you see people, it's like we struggle with it too. It may seem like, success and whatever, but there's a lot of stuff that I'm just figuring
Mhm.
out because at the end of the day, I'm 23. Like
Mhm.
I'm figuring this out, I'm learning and I'm trying to keep as open of a mind as I can, but I have frustrating days. I have really not productive days. I have days where I could stop a moving train and I just feel limitless. But I think it's all just about looking at it as a whole instead of like
Mhm.
just individual days and writing those emotions and focusing more just with a farther back perspective of every day you're learning something, then you're moving forward.
Out of curiosity, like have a lot of like the TikTok people actually convert into your on the business side, or like do people discover you still through like previous clients and everything else?
It's a little bit of a mixture
Mhm.
of both, I would say, because some of the people that I get referrals from are people that I met through TikTok. And so then it's like they're also, correlated with TikTok or they make content and stuff. And so it is really like because of TikTok that I
Mhm.
had that opportunity, but it's not like because of my content that well, I guess to be fair,
Mhm.
maybe it is. So that's probably why it's a bit of a mixture. In terms of like actual like viewers,
Mhm.
audience, just pure, I don't know them and they just buy stuff. I don't monetize a ton like that where I'm selling, digital products and business that's in the
Mhm.
pipeline for sure because I want to make things that people can use that are, I love this video. Can I buy the template or can I do this? Or,
Mhm.
a lot of that time I get inbound from viewers like that. It'll be saying, hey, I am 16, I have no money and I need a logo for my clothing brand that I'm starting in my, bedroom. Like, can you make one for me?
Mhm.
And like, I respect that. I do. And
Yeah.
I know what that feels like. And I know I resonate with that so much because I'm part of that generation. Like I know what that feels like. And so I'll usually say, hey, I can't. I'm too focused on work or something like that. But I'll usually have like a couple options. Say, hey, like you could check this out and you can get, for only like $30, you can get like a template logo or something that you can customize, right? Like
Mhm.
something that would be in their vicinity for like a realistic solution. And I try to at least point them in the direction of something that would make sense. So I would say that most of those viewers are like younger and they don't really have that kind of like spending power that they would need for like a legitimate design agency.
Mhm.
But I still want to find, I still want to help them, right? Like at the end of the
Mhm.
day, a creator, one of their main goals is to give value to their audience. And so if that's someone asking a question or
Mhm.
asking for where they can get a logo for $10, I mean, I support it. I don't think it's the best idea, but I still want to show you what your options are.
You mentioned like you specifically don't make money on TikTok. Like, for example, a lot of people are in the creator fund or like creator marketplace. Like, I'm not exactly sure what does the creator fund entail or like the creator marketplace. But like, I'm curious, like, why do you make the decision to like not monetize that way? And then like, what are those in general for like a person who is
Yeah.
not TikTok world?
The TikTok Creator Fund is a fixed amount of money that TikTok has set aside from donations and stuff like that. And they've said, we're going to use this to pay out creators for the content they make. It's similar to what YouTube does, but the difference is that YouTube has AdSense and they don't have a fixed amount. That amount is constantly being added to. So the creators are getting a share. The issue with TikTok's Creator Fund is that because it's a fixed rate, the more creators you have, the more views they're getting, the less everybody's making per view. That's why you have people making 0.0009 RPM. The TikTok Creator Marketplace is an additional way you can monetize as a creator on TikTok. I think the requirements to apply are a little bit higher. I think it's like 100,000 or something. But that is TikTok's in-house built-in storefront for brands to buy sponsors or deals with creators. I think that it has been really unsuccessful. It's not tuned in enough. I think that I've opted into that, but it's not like you make money as soon as you opt in. It just means that like brands can say we want to work with you. And I've only gotten a couple of brands, I would say like a handful maybe, that were reaching out, wanted to do stuff, and it was always some very obscure, like the partnership makes no sense, it's not going to benefit them. And it's like, as a creator, you have to, one, protect your asset, which is your audience, and two, you have to think like, this is cool, like I can make a couple $1,000s off this, but like it's not going to benefit you at all. I know that it's not going to benefit you because you've just picked the weirdest creator, like just, you're throwing something against the wall hoping it sticks. It's almost like it's a double-edged sword. It's like a lose-lose for us, because we kind of make a shill of an ad for our audience, and the audience is like, okay, really, like we don't want to see this. And then the company is like, dude, nobody bought our stuff. Like, you are the worst. You suck as a creator. Like, you're not driving sales. And I'm like, the real factor here is that you just don't align with my audience. And so the reason why I don't opt into the TikTok fund is because there's a few reasons, and they get progressively more conspiracy theory-ist. The first reason being, and this is the tame one, which is it's just not worth it. I just don't think it's worth it. I know people make a couple $100 a month, and you said, yeah, well, everything adds up, and like I agree, but you'll understand why like maybe it's not worth it in these next ones. The second one is, I think that especially with platforms where you don't have full ownership over your audience, which TikTok is one of them. If I post something, not all 1.1 million of the followers are going to get a notification that says Noah has posted something, right? Maybe a couple thousand of them will see something. These platforms that have stuff like that, they have to keep things rolling, right? The way that I was like logically piecing it together in my head was that there's two ways they can do this. They're either going to start paying creators less per view, and that's how they're going to maintain the creator fund, or they're going to run out, right? Or the other one, which would be a lot easier, which is they're suddenly going to suppress views, and suddenly your views are no longer as good, or there's not as many issues, or like you can't really get out to your audience or whatever. And I think the second one is far more likely. But the third option is they do both, which, you can talk to anyone and it's a 50-50 coin flip of, no, there's no such thing as shadow banning or suppressing views. Yeah, we don't do that. And then you'll talk to the people and they'll say like, I'm actually an engineer for one of these companies, and I've literally coded in the feature to suppress views like remotely for any reason whatsoever. And so like you can kind of get a little like, crazy tinfoil hat with that. But I think at the end of the day, I just decided that off of the business that I was already having and then the inbound that I was getting, like a couple $100s a month on views, running the risk that I could also suppress those views and then, in turn suppress the inbound for my business or just like general recognition and stuff, wasn't really worth it.
By the way, like, do you feel like your audience are like majorly designers, or do you feel like your audience are just like everybody? Well, I am one of your audience, so I'm not a designer, but I'm just curious, like, how do you look at the audience base and see like, who they are?
I wouldn't say that a majority of them are designers. I don't think there's that many, like, I mean, maybe there are, and maybe I'm just wrong, but I would say like that's such a niche thing versus like, and there's such a gray line between I'm a designer and I say I'm a designer versus I'm just interested in things that are about design. Do you know what I mean? And so like same thing, like I love fashion, right? Like I think it's incredible. I think it's an art form and I think it's really cool to watch, but like I wouldn't consider myself like a fashion creator or like a
Mhm.
dress creator, whatever it's called, right?
Mhm.
But I still follow fashion accounts, and like I think it's cool, and I think it's just fascinating. And so I'd imagine the same would be true for like design accounts like mine, where there's probably a significant majority of the audience that is purely just interested in the design and the content of like what I'm designing. There's
Mhm.
probably a smaller amount that's like actually designers looking for inspiration or doing whatever. And I bet that's probably like maybe 50, 100K or something.
Mhm.
And at the same other end of the spectrum, there's people who are only interested in like, because I did something about Ariana Grande or Taylor
Mhm.
Swift or whatever, or Billie Eilish, that they are like fans of them and they follow because, oh, you like them, so I'll do that. And so
Mhm.
I wish there was more analytics to really hone in on that kind of stuff, because I'm obviously really into it, and
Mhm.
I love just like understanding more about it. Because at the end of the day, information like that only helps the creator to make better content for their audience. And so if I know that like, wow, only 20,000 of my followers are actually like either studying to be a designer, are working as a professional designer, et cetera, et cetera, and most of the people are just interested in design, then it might make less sense for me to offer like digital products for people to design something. And it might make more sense for me to create a tool where people who are not designers can design something.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like it's
Mhm.
really something that interesting. And so I know there's tools out there that are they have that kind of data. Unfortunately, they really sell like corporations, and
Mhm.
they're starting at like $100,000. And I love TikTok and I love making videos, but I'm not paying $100,000 just to have data right now. But I have a couple people that I've been talking to that are working on one of those where we're working on like a kind of a quid pro quo, like I'll trade you for this type thing. So maybe, but yeah, I think that data is important, and unfortunately, like we just don't get that much of it on the back end when we're like creating for these platforms.
If you're making a TikTok like from scratch today, like, like if you don't really have the following today, like how would you go about this TikTok journey? And like how long did it took off before? Well, like I know the Lego one that like was like the one that kind of like took off for
Mhm.
you, but like what about the before? Like how many video have you made before you actually found something that like would work?
I think it's interesting too, because my definition of working
Mhm.
changed, right? Like
Mhm.
I realized like I was making tutorials, and then like my definition of,
Mhm.
oh, this video is working was, can I break 10,000 views? And so, when I post a video and only get 1,000 or 2,000, whatever, I didn't even view that as broken. I just thought, oh, I need to like try other stuff, right? Like I need to keep evolving this process. As the kind of numbers change, in order to keep up with that, you have to
Mhm.
change your thresholds a little bit. And the scary part of that is that you're opening yourself up for like severe disappointment, because there's no longer a floor to catch you on. So if you're like, oh, my videos are getting an average of 100,000 views, whatever, and then I have a video that gets 20,000 views, that hurts. That
Yeah,
doesn't feel
totally.
good, right?
Mhm.
But in reality, like you take a step back and go, you would have killed for 20,000 views on a video 9 months ago. It kind of just escalated along the way. And I think actually fairly recently, and within the last, I would say, several months, as like in my hiatus and like before, I stopped placing so much of an emphasis on the views and the followers that I was getting, and more so on like, is the content that I'm making supporting what I want to do outside of this platform too? Like,
Mhm.
is the content I'm making, one, helping and being valuable, entertaining, whatever? Just it has to provide something. I usually like to be able to quantify that. And so entertaining is hard to quantify, but you can quantify value of like, oh yeah, well, I gave 10 tips, or I gave four, tutorials, whatever. But again, if I was going to start fresh, I think the thing that I would do very differently this time, and this isn't fair, like it's people just don't, you have to kind of get to this point to be like, I understand this, truly understand this now,
Mhm.
is I would literally just make content purely about helping people, just helping and being a design to help. Even if I think
Mhm.
tutorial content gets repetitive and I think it's whatever, I think that instead of chasing after like the followers and the likes and the views, which is good for a lot of stuff, I would much rather have a really tight knit small community of maybe 50 to 100,000 people that are just do or die, all into it. And like, I have a really close relationship with them, and we're in Discord servers and doing this and this and like that kind of stuff. And so I would really just focus on, and this is kind of like, it's not really my saying, but it's like going virtually door to door. The
Mm.
same thing with every single person who starts a business. What do? You have to send outreach emails. You got to cold call. You got to knock on some doors. So what's the
Mm.
equivalent of virtually going door to door? Every single follower that you get, DM them. Hey man,
Mhm.
I really appreciate you following me. If you have some content ideas that you'd like me to make, comment them or send me a message or do something. And that kind of like direct response to somebody really builds authentic relationships, because in a comment section, like, yeah, I still respond to as many comments as I can. That's great. But like that effect compounds, and no pun intended with compound creative, but yeah, I really mean it. Going virtually door to door and engaging with other people is almost as effective, if not just as effective, as posting your own content for others to engage on. So if you go to someone's video and you scroll and you just comment, and every video you just think, how can I be positive? How can I send something to this person? How can I like put an olive branch out and say, hey, this is really great. You did some really cool stuff here. That's effective. And people don't want to do that because it's grunt work and it takes a long time and it's not scalable. Sure, it's not scalable. But if you do that 20,000 times and 20,000 people are now following you because of this interaction you have with them, those people know you like straight up. Not like, oh, I know one of his videos, or like, oh, that's the logo design guy. It's like, no, that's the guy who talked to me specifically and was having a conversation with me in the DMs or whatever. And like, now we just follow each other. And so I think it's more, to recap, I think it's more focused on like really building a just tight knit community of people, less focus on like the followers, the views, like being afraid that people are gonna, oh, you fell off or you did whatever, and more just like, I'm only interested in making connections with people on here.
I'm curious, like how much time would you spend on this, like at the beginning, and what would you say would be like your end result? Because like you can probably have a really ongoing conversation with that person.
If I posted a video, at the minimum, I would be spending 1 hour after that video was posting, responding to literally every comment. Every comment, every DM, everyone. Yeah. I'm checking my phone obsessively, like responding to new comment. I got a new comment, I got to respond, right? Because that was so crucial and so important to me. When these people come to my page and they come to my video, they associate that. There's a synonymous parallel with, I'm being heard. I'm having a discussion with this person. Like, they have zero ego. They're not, talking down to me. They're talking with me and next to me. So I'd spend a lot of time doing that. And I would say that is crucial regardless. It's the same thing with everything, business, whatever. You just have to get your reps in. You can't do it half-heartedly. You really have to put your effort into it and talk to this person. And I in a separate realm, I was working with as a designer with this incredible person named Anne McFerrin. She owns a company called Glamnetic. It's this huge makeup e-com store. And I remember she was telling us that when she was first starting, it was very bootstrapped, right? Like they are starting in her room, in her, I think it was an apartment. And I just remember this line where she was like, I was messaging every single visitor or every single person who followed the account on Glamnetic, said, hey, this is Anne. Thanks so much for following. If you have any questions about some of these products, like I'd be happy to answer them for you, like, et cetera, et cetera. And people, that means something to people in this age of like constant just talking, viewing, producing, etc. When you can sit down and say, it's like, let's have a DM conversation. Could you do that for 500,000 people? No, you can't. But you can still try. I think obviously as you scale, there's a degree of, okay, well, this isn't working anymore. So how about instead we move this over to an open forum where maybe it's not just a one-on-one conversation, but it's like a Discord where like we're all just chatting. We're all here to talk. And maybe this channel has this stuff and you can kind of pipe in and have conversations or do live streams or do stuff like that. And so, but I think if you're getting started and you're going from 0 to literally 1 follower, just start interacting with people. Just start saying, hey, love your content.
I'm curious, like, what are some effective way to like, let's say like, okay, let's DM this person who like follow our page. She answers some questions. I think that's a good approach, but what are some, like, what if you're not like really selling something that's like really small, right? Like, for example, your design packages like could be like really huge on like maybe like someone with like, as you mentioned, like 16 years old trying to start like a clothing store or trying to like hustle and stuff. How do you both in an effective way to connect with the audience, but also like, not losing the energy time on like running a business?
That's a good question. And I wish there was an obvious, like clear-cut answer, but there isn't. I think the reason why I did that stuff is because I just loved it. I loved being able to like talk to another person screen to screen, and someone who was like, I've made the conscious decision to follow you and support your content. And I was like, that was like, gave me, euphoria for a moment of like, oh my God, this person is like sitting here and it's just looked at my content and it's just gone, you know what? I like this a lot. I want to decide it. And so that was kind of what drove me to just message them and thank them or do whatever. And
Mhm.
I think, like I said earlier, it would be similar. So like if someone was coming to me in that same way, I'd say, let me know if what you want to see, yada yada. And they're like, oh, well, I really need a
Mhm.
logo. I'm like, all right, well, what's your budget? It's like, oh, maybe it's low. Maybe it's like $50. I'm like, I totally understand. Like, unfortunately, that's like outside of my range. However, I know a couple other solutions that may work for your situation. And that's another thing that I think, I don't know if this gets lost in just the new tech company culture, like age of things where there's all these business popping up, but like you are not the solution to everything. And that's okay. But
Mhm.
at the very least, even if they're not your client, even if they're not your customer, you can treat them with kindness and that will go a long way. If that is something like as simple as saying, hey, look, we're not the solution for you, but I can point you in a direction of a couple of things that may make more sense for you. And like I can vouch for I know that they work, they're good. That matters. Right? Like it's the same thing as like if you're working at McDonald's and someone comes up and they say, I want a soup or whatever. And it's like you say, you know what? We don't actually sell soup here. But if you wanted to, there is a Panera Bread like around the corner. They have great soup. I've tried it or whatever, and it's whatever. It's that simple. And I think that's kind of even I see it with some of the more like blue collar jobs where they're like, this is actually outside of our expertise. We're more than happy to help you find someone who can do it and like we'll help you vet them. And it's just that kind of little like, oh, he's actually caring about the outcome, regardless of whether or not he's part of the solution. That shows that he, doesn't just care about how much he can monetize off of me. He actually cares about providing that value. And so I think that's one way to have that connection. But to answer your question about the repeated process of it, I think it wanes. I think you're gonna have people who are really into it at first and then probably don't engage with the conversation as much later or just don't really talk as much, and that's okay. People move on and they have probably busy stuff,
Mhm.
and it's not always about you, so to speak. It's maybe just about them making like figuring out what priority
Mhm.
that is in their life. And like, something as simple as a message board or whatever, sometimes it's going to fall pretty low on like the priority thing. But for the people who are like obsessive and they really love it, like they're going to be in it all day. They love that stuff. And so I think it's just about not getting discouraged if, you have
Mhm.
100 people in your Discord server and only 15 are talking, because 100 people still made the conscious decision to join, and they can also
Mhm.
make the conscious decision to leave. Like it goes both
Mhm.
ways. As long as you're continuing to provide content in a way that you feel is, one, sustainable for you because you don't want to burn
Mhm.
yourself out, but two, that like you feel is uplifting you too. Like you feel, I feel good like doing this, right? Not like, oh, I have to put on this show and this song and dance. I have to be on for these people. It's like, no, you don't want it to be that. I don't think there's an obvious answer for like too much, too little, do all this, don't do all this. It's just whatever makes sense for how much you're willing to put into it. And then the people who really resonate with that they'll come and they'll stick around, and you'll notice that. But it might take, going through a lot more people who are like, oh, this is cool, but I'm not really like that interested in it, to find that group of people who are just like, I'm all about this.
Let's say like if you and I are running this B2B company, or let's say like we're running a fund or something, how do we position ourselves on TikTok? And then like what kind of content should we be making to kind of promoting our business?
I'd say the first thing I say to every single business is stop treating your page like it's a business page.
Mhm.
Just stop. It's not going to work. People do not care about your business. They just
Mhm.
don't. I know it's a hard pill to swallow. I know that you spend time and time and time to hours and blood, sweat, and tears to make it, what it is, but they don't care. What they care about is you and who you are and who's running this business.
Mhm.
Everyone will always look at brands as this vehicle with a face, like a mask on it, right?
Mhm.
They're never going to really see the brand because everyone is skeptical. Brands is how that works. So the best thing you can do on TikTok is not position yourself as we are a company trying to sell you products, but position yourself as I'm a person doing person things, running a business and trying to do this. And I'm going to share with you these ugly details and these things and stuff that may, be counterintuitive to what a brand strategist will tell you, where it's like, no, you can't let them know that you're having trouble with this because they'll get, nervous about it. And instead be like, no, guys, we're actually having an issue. And I just wanted to let you guys know, because when you build that trust, the response isn't going to be, well, we're giving my money back. Like, you brand, like, leave me alone. It's going to be, no, we actually totally understand. Like, we appreciate you updating us. Let us know if there's something we can do to help. So I think that's the biggest thing, is like, stop trying to
Mhm.
make your brand operate as a brand on TikTok. Make it a person, be a person.
Mhm.
And if it's under your brand name, fine. But I'd say optimally have a personal account and just have a person thing and run it like that. And I think it's a case to case, obviously, because you want to be business to business, but that's the most successful way to get people to care about what you're doing is to treat them like people and not like numbers.
When it comes to execution, what kind of content pillar should be in this brand? So like you mentioned, like, maybe show some behind the scene, like how your company is operating. But what if how I operate is like literally me sitting in front of a computer every day, like either coding or like me like writing a document or something? What are things that people could actually insert into the, let's say, 3 content pillar or something?
First one I think is self-aware irony. That type of content really excels on TikTok when you're
Mhm.
self-aware because you could literally make a post saying what you just said, where it's like when they tell you you're supposed to like do a behind the scenes video for your business, but like this
Mhm.
is literally what behind the scenes looks like, and it's just 3 people like typing at a desk.
Mhm.
That would do well. That's funny. People are like, oh, that's
Mhm.
funny. They're self-aware. They understand themselves, right? Like understand like what they look like and etc. Second thing is for especially for like coding, like engineers and stuff, right? One of the biggest things is people don't know about that stuff. They don't know.
Mhm.
And I encounter this with every person who's highly trained in like a specific skill set where they think like nobody will care about that because it's so basic. Like it's so
Mhm.
simple, right? You are wrong. You are so
Mhm.
wrong. People don't know anything about what you're doing. So
Mhm.
you should start from the bottom with the very easy stuff. Show them what you're doing and be like, hey, we're working on this thing. We're doing this right now. Like
Mhm.
we're adding a feature to do this, et cetera, et cetera. Like, here's how you code this. Oh, this cool animation we have on our site. Here's how I made it. Stuff like that, where you can show like it's just a little bit of value. Maybe it's not directly tied to your product, but value.
Mhm.
Then there's videos you can make that are directly, valuable to your product, right? There's I have a friend named Jason. He runs it's like a jewelry shop called Call Your Fam. The whole like brand ethos is cherishing your family and cherishing the time you have with them and being present with them when you can. And his main strategy on TikTok, which has done well, is that he goes out and sits up at Santa Monica or LA or whatever, and he has a sign that says, if you call your family a family member and tell them that you love them, I'll give you a free bracelet or a free necklace. It's just really wholesome and it really speaks to his brand ethos, which is, care about your family. And like
Mhm.
he wants this brand to commemorate that and to represent that. And so when people see that and they really align with that kind of energy and with that messaging, they
Mhm.
want to support it. You don't have to ask them. They want to. Like they like that. They want to align with it. You're going to find your core
Mhm.
audience like that. I think stuff like that, where if it's like an engineer, it's like, well, what I'm doing is boring. It is not. You just have to really like open up this huge skill set that you've built and
Mhm.
pick out some layers and be like, I bet you a lot of people would know about this. Or like, here's how screen printing works and whatever. So you can show
Mhm.
like that kind of behind the scenes, right? And the third thing that you can do is create content that is circular with direct engagement with the comment section. So it's what I do with mine, where anytime I'm making a video, I'm replying to a comment suggestion with
Mhm.
that new video. So people see that, they recognize that pattern, and now
Mhm.
they are like, well, I want to be in the fun. Like I want to do this. Like, okay, what if this and this? And so that's when I get a list, it starts with one and then it has two, and then suddenly you have 10,000 comments of people wanting to be a part of it. Like pick mine, like do this one. Like I've asked
Mhm.
40 times or whatever, something like that, where maybe if you're building it's like a SaaS tool, right? And you're like your engineer or something, go on there and say, you know what? We want to take suggestions from our audience about the features that we should have.
Mhm.
And comment what you think would make the most sense. And they comment something, and then you can show you, all right, so we built it like this, we built it like this. Do we
Mhm.
want to go with blue button or red button? And like
Mhm.
people start, so it's just make them part of the decision making process for
Mhm.
things, and they will feel like they're responsible and protective of your brand. So
Mhm.
there's stuff like that where you really just like, it's kind of like, I don't know, this may be a little demeaning, but it's like bring your kid to work
Mhm.
anytime, like bring your child to work, a toddler, whatever, and anytime they go look at something or like what is this, or they ask questions, write it down and make a video about it on TikTok. Because if your kid is curious about it, there's
Mhm.
probably 100,000 other kids that are curious about it too, or have no idea that they even would be curious about it
Mhm.
if you hadn't made that video.
You mentioned like, you made the Taylor Swift like video and then like it got like just like contacted by the creator team of like Taylor Swift's like legal team or something. Basically, they're like, this looks too real for us, blah blah blah. Like curious, like if something has copyright stuff, like how do you kind of like avoid to be kind of like sued by these brands?
I think just for a general way of operating as a creator, I think you should always cross the line, and just so that you know where it lays. You should always pursue something that you think may be a little too, just do it. As long as it's not going to get you arrested, as long as it's not going to hurt somebody else, and
Mhm.
as long as it's not going to like definitely get you sued and like you'll lose a lot of money, do it.
Mhm.
What are they going to do? Take your video down? Do it. Brands deserve to be chastised. Like
Mhm.
you're this like faux human thing pretending to be relatable so that people will buy your product.
Mhm.
Make fun of them and do it well. Make an interesting, funny thing because you'd be very surprised. I've watched this happen to people where they're making fun of brands and some of these brands are hiring them to make fun of them because it's funny. And like
Mhm.
that shows the brand is self-aware, which is a whole other layer of like matrix level marketing psychology. But for me personally, when I think of copyright, I think of as long as I'm not unintentionally putting work out there that and saying like this is my work and my work alone, I do whatever. And
Mhm.
I've had videos sometimes where, yeah, like I got taken out because of copyright or like the song was whatever and this and that. Like that kind of sucks. But you can't know that until you do it. And so
Mhm.
just do it. And then once you find out where that line lays, okay, cool, maybe I'll just pull back in this one area and I can, I can keep pushing this farther and stuff. So I would say, yeah, that's the general gist of how I deal with copyright. And I'm a very transparent and straightforward person. So if someone, if their legal team or whatever had the decency to email me and say something, I probably would have taken a different. I'd have been like, you know what, I totally understand. Like, yeah, I will archive the video, no problem. Like, it's not a big
Mhm.
deal. I think that a lot of people just always assume that your response is going to be combative. That's just how that is with brands and people and companies and stuff. And I just don't think it's always the case. But they don't give us the chance to show that.
What's your plan on, like migrating onto, like not migrating, but like pivot onto other platform? Because like I think the easiest way would be like just like YouTube or whatever, like just like wherever, or like Instagram Reels. I know that you've been posting on some on Instagram Reels and stuff. I know TikTok is like your dominant platform. Like how do
Mm-hmm.
you think about like creating content maybe for other platforms too? There's like also like the copyright of the song or like some other stuff that are like you need to like actually redo to like make your content live on other platform legally. Like how do you
Yeah.
kind of like do these kind of like spin off?
Like just like you said, for example, Facebook is something that people really underestimate as a platform they should
Mm.
be building an audience on, but like people are making a nauseating amount of money posting
Mhm.
content on Facebook. And it's not even like traditionally good content. Like it's almost what's it called? Like view bait or whatever, where like they just make you watch for a while, but nothing really happens. But because it's a view duration thing, so they
Mhm.
get paid more. Anyways, Facebook specifically has super strict copyright rules when it comes to getting paid for your content. So if I were to repost all of my TikToks on there and gain success, I would make no money off of it because almost every single song that I've used is like a famous big song, like, because it's a trend, it's TikTok, but like that's the point of TikTok is to use these big songs and turn them into,
Mhm.
it's a trend thing. Instagram, it's a little bit similar. I think
Mhm.
with Instagram, I basically just repost my TikToks and then try to build in some other like Instagram native type of content that works for there. So if that's just stills or like, brand boards of like things I designed, or it's more like compilations of stuff using like a certain audio. It's like they have a very kind of, you can tell when it's an Instagram video. And then for YouTube, I think it's a little similar too with Facebook, where like I have a lot of copyrighted music in my videos. And so when I post on shorts, like that's not going to be monetized because and the thing is these videos are edited directly to the song, like it's the beat and this, and
Mhm.
it's like unless I can find a song with the exact same BPM that doesn't sound awful, that's a stock song, like it's
Mhm.
not really going to work. I've really approached that more with like I'm leveraging the short form to get a little bit of a footing first, and then I want to segue into long form content. And so
Mhm.
the long form content I think will be much less about let me make an edit and be more about like strictly value driven, like either entertaining or informative or something or the other, and like anything in between where it's like here's a tutorial. Like I have a script written up right now which is it's like here's 5 things you can do to land more clients in 2023, and these are tools that I'm using that are
Mhm.
like I can't believe nobody's doing this, like, or that like very few people are exercising these tools. But I think overall when you make a really large body of content, it is worth it to just post it on other platforms and see what happens. It's just worth it. Like what's going to happen? Oh, your videos get demonetized. You weren't going to make money on it in the first place because you have no followers on that platform. So it doesn't matter. Just post it. You might
Mhm.
as well syndicate your content everywhere you can. Again, it's the same thing. Look at it, recognize the patterns, and be like, wow, this content is really underperforming on TikTok or on Instagram, but it's doing
Mhm.
great on Shorts. Okay, stop posting it on Instagram and switch the content up. And maybe what you can do is instead take concepts from videos that you have and,
Mhm.
tree branch a new video that, maybe the format of that video works way better on Instagram. And so you're not really having to rethink the ideas over and over again. You're just kind of repurposing the concept, so to speak. And so you really just build it out with whatever is the most convenient for you. But at the very least, spam that, spam it, put it everywhere. Don't spam it. Sorry. But just post it everywhere. Post it on Reddit, post it on YouTube Shorts, whatever. And people on Reddit are mean. So just be warned. But there's no downside to it. And that's the beauty of these platform wars where everyone wants to be short form content. Great. I have a lot of short form content that I'll just cross post on all these. And then, they try to be like, well, no, you can't do that. Don't repost content because we'll suppress your views. And I'm like, did you guys really think that I'm just going to make a video for Instagram? Like, be for real right now. Like, do you think I'm really just going to make a video for Instagram? Like, it's just naive. It's naive. And I know I'm going on a little bit of a tangent, but if any creator, people that are working at these companies, the moment that you guys realize that this is an ecosystem and not a hierarchy, everybody benefits. Instagram can serve a purpose. TikTok serves a purpose. YouTube, Reddit, Snapchat. Creators post for all of these instead of you guys all fighting for the same piece of bread. Like, what if we all just like make it so that it's an environment that creators can prosper in, because then your platform will prosper, but people are greedy.
Like, okay, we're at the last part of the interview, which is like a mini firearm. So, okay, so the first question is, what's your favorite book?
Atomic Habits.
Who made the biggest impact in your career?
A couple people, I would say Kevin Gould, JT Barnett, and my two teachers, Alan Harrison, Jeff Blights, and another one, Brian Carlock.
Who would you invite to your dinner party?
I'd probably invite all of the creator friends that I could fit into a restaurant.
What would you guys eat? This is on the spot.
Oh my God, I'm so hungry. I'm so hungry now. Probably sushi. I love sushi and seafood and stuff like that. Yeah, I like that stuff.
Where can we find you outside of work?
You can find me posted up on the couch pretending not to be doing work. No, like I'll go to the movies and I'll walk the dogs and I go to the gym a lot. I go every day, and yeah, I try to just live a fun, succinct life.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Noah, for coming on the show today.
Thank you. This was a phenomenal conversation. I'm so glad you had me, and I really appreciate the invite. So I appreciate it so much.